Welcome to Cherry Blossom BL Story, where emotions bloom and stories unfold. Sit back, relax, and enjoy today's chapter.
He hadn't tasted anything real in 12 years, not the burn of whiskey, not the salt of blood on a split lip, not even the metallic tang of fear. Every bite, every sip, ash, grey, nothing, until today. One random avocado toast from a street cart in a city he barely noticed, one bite. And flavor exploded inside him like a gunshot sharp, alive, impossible. His hand froze midair. The vendor behind the counter looked up, casual smile fading as he saw the stranger's face go pale, then flush, eyes wide with something close to terror. Alexander Voss stared at the half-eaten toast like it had just confessed to murder, because if this was real, then the curse was breaking, and whoever, or whatever, had placed it 12 years ago would know. Chapter 5, Malibu Escape. The invitation came on Friday afternoon, delivered in person at the cart instead of over text. Alexander arrived later than usual, nearly 4 p.m., when the lunch rush had died and the sun was already slanting low across the brick warehouses. He didn't order right away. He just stood at the counter, hands in his pockets, watching Ethan finish an order for a pair of college students who were still giggling about the viral video. When the customers left, Ethan wiped his hands on his apron and met Alexander's gaze. "You look like you're about to ask for something big." Alexander didn't smile. "Come with me this weekend, Malibu, my place on the beach." Ethan's eyebrows climbed. "Your place?" "To get away from the noise," Alexander said. "Cameras, posts, my ex's bullshit, everything." Ethan studied him for a long moment, long enough that Alexander felt the silence press against his ribs. "I don't do weekends away with billionaires," Ethan said finally. "I've got the cart. Close it for 2 days, I'll cover whatever you lose. That's not the point." Alexander stepped closer, voice dropping. "Please." The word hung there, quiet, raw, the same please he'd used the first time he'd asked for another toast. Ethan exhaled, looked at the empty counter, then back at Alexander. "I'll think about it. By 6 p.m. Ethan texted. "He picked me up at 8. "I'm bringing my own coffee." Alexander smiled at his phone for the first time in hours. The drive up the Pacific Coast Highway was quiet at first. Ethan sat in the passenger seat of the Escalade. Marco had the night off, with his backpack between his feet and a travel mug of cold brew in his hand. Alexander drove himself, windows cracked to let in the salt air, radio off. The tension from the week lingered between them like static. Ethan broke the silence somewhere past Santa Monica. "You really just have a house in Malibu, you more of a compound," Alexander admitted. "I don't use it much." Ethan snorted. "Of course you don't." They didn't speak again until they pulled through the private gate and down the long gravel drive. The house appeared at the end of it, low, modern lines of glass and stone, cantilevered over the bluff so it looked like it was floating above the ocean. Lights came on automatically as they approached, warm, golden, welcoming in a way that felt almost staged. Ethan stepped out, backpack slung over one shoulder, and stared. "Holy shit." Alexander came around the car. "Come on." Inside, the open, plan living room stretched toward floor to ceiling windows that framed the darkening Pacific. Ethan set his bag down slowly, like he was afraid to leave fingerprints. Alexander didn't give him time to overthink. "I'm making toast." Ethan laughed, short, surprised. "You're making toast in a house that probably has a Michelin star chef on speed dial." "I've been watching you for weeks," Alexander said, already moving to the kitchen. "I can mash an avocado." It was a disaster. Alexander sliced the bread too thin, the avocado came out lumpy, and he nearly took the tip of his finger with the chili flakes. Ethan watched from the island stool, chin in hand, grinning wider with every mistake. "You're hopeless," Ethan said when Alexander finally slid 2 uneven toasts across the marble. Alexander took a bite anyway, closed his eyes, still perfect. Ethan tried his own, and not bad for a first try. They ate standing at the counter, shoulders brushing, the sound of waves rolling in through the open sliders. When the plates were empty, Alexander tilted his head toward the deck. "Walk with me." The beach was private, empty, except for the two of them and the gulls wheeling overhead. Sunset painted the water in streaks of orange and rose. They walked barefoot in the wet sand, close enough that their arms touched every few steps. Ethan spoke first, voice quieter than the surf. "I keep thinking what happens when the novelty wears off, when you go back to your boardrooms and I'm still the guy with the cart. I don't want to be the story you tell at dinner parties. Remember that summer I got obsessed with avocado toast and the kid who sold it?" Alexander stopped walking, turned to face him. "That's not what this is." Ethan looked out at the horizon. "Then what is it?" Alexander reached out, caught Ethan's wrist, gentle but firm. "I haven't felt anything real in 12 years. Not food, not people, not anything, until you handed me that first toast and looked at me like I was just some guy in a suit who was hungry." Ethan's breath caught. Alexander stepped closer. The curse wasn't just about taste. It was about everything going gray, cold, empty. "You brought color back, you brought heat, you brought this." He pressed Ethan's hand to his own chest, over the steady, too fast beat of his heart. "I haven't felt this until you." Ethan's fingers curled against the fabric of Alexander's shirt. "You feel this?" Alexander nodded once, then he kissed him, slow at first, testing, careful, like he was afraid the moment might shatter. Ethan went still for half a heartbeat, then he surged forward, hands fisting in Alexander's shirt, kissing back harder, hungrier. Alexander groaned low in his throat. His hands slid under Ethan's t-shirt, palms flat against warm skin, tracing the lean lines of his back. Ethan arched into the touch, teeth grazing Alexander's lower lip. Alexander pulled him closer, possessive, desperate, until there was no space left between them. "You're mine now," he growled against Ethan's lips, voice rough with everything he'd held back for weeks. Ethan laughed breathlessly, kissed him again, deeper, claiming, "We'll see." They stumbled back toward the house, hands roaming, mouths never quite parting. The deck doors slid shut behind them. The sunset bled into night. Inside, under the soft glow of the living room lights, Alexander backed Ethan against the nearest wall. Hands slid higher under shirts, skin on skin, heat building fast. Ethan broke the kiss just long enough to whisper, "In not here, bedroom." Alexander didn't argue. They made it halfway down the hall before clothes started hitting the floor, shirt, belt buckle clinking against tile. By the time they reached the master suite, they were both breathing hard, pupils blown, hands greedy. Alexander pushed Ethan gently onto the bed, followed him down, covering him with his body. He kissed Ethan's throat, collarbone, the hollow at the base of his neck, slow, reverent, like he was memorizing every inch. Ethan's fingers threaded through Alexander's hair, tugging just enough to make him growl again. "You stop teasing," Ethan muttered. Alexander lifted his head, eyes dark. "I've waited 12 years to feel something. I'm not rushing this." Ethan's laugh was shaky. "Then don't stop." Alexander didn't. They moved together, slow, then faster, desperate, tender, possessive, hands gripped, mouths claimed. Whispers of names and curses and a mine and please tangled in the dark. When it was over, they lay tangled in the sheets, ocean roaring beyond the windows, hearts still racing. Ethan traced lazy circles on Alexander's chest. "I still think I'm a novelty." Alexander caught his hand, pressed a kiss to the knuckles. "You're everything." Ethan smiled, small, real, unguarded. "We'll see." But he didn't pull away. He curled closer instead. Outside, the Pacific rolled on, endless and indifferent. Inside, for the first time in 12 years, Alexander Voss felt warm, and he knew he would burn the world down before he let that warmth go. Chapter 6, Jealous Flames. The next afternoon, the line at Ethan's smash stretched longer than usual. not just regulars, but a handful of new faces drawn by the lingering viral buzz. Phones were still out, discreetly angled, but Ethan had learned to ignore them. He moved through orders on autopilot: mash, lime, chili, salt, herbs, toast, hand over parchment with a practiced smile. Alexander arrived at 2:45 p.m., later than his new normal. He parked the Escalade a block away this time, walked the rest in dark jeans and a black Henley instead of a suit. Still expensive, still unmistakable. Ethan spotted him immediately, felt the familiar lift in his chest, then pushed it down. They hadn't spoken since the text Ethan had sent last night, "I miss you too," and no reply had come. He told himself it didn't sting. Alexander didn't sit at the wobbly table right away. He stood off to the side, arms crossed, watching. That was when the regular showed up. Mid-20s, baseball cap backward, always ordered the loaded version with double herbs. He'd been coming for months, always with the same easy grin, the same lingering lean over the counter. Today he stayed longer than usual. "Hey, Ethan," he said, voice pitched just loud enough to carry. "You holding up with all the fame? Need a break? I could take you out after close, show you a spot with better views than this parking lot." Ethan laughed, polite, deflecting. "I'm good, man, got early mornings." The regular didn't take the hint. He rested an elbow on the counter, closer now. "Come on, one drink. You deserve it after dealing with all these gawkers." Alexander moved before Ethan could answer. He stepped up beside the regular, close enough that the guy had to shift back an inch. Alexander's voice was low, controlled, lethal. "He's with me." The regular blinked, laughed once nervous. "Whoa, dude, didn't mean anything by it." Ethan's head snapped toward Alexander. "Alex." The regular raised both hands, backed off. "Chill, man, just talking." He paid quickly, grabbed his toast, and left without another word. Silence crashed down like a dropped tray. Ethan finished the next order on muscle memory, jaw tight. When the line finally cleared, he flipped the closed sign early, something he almost never did, and turned to Alexander. "Inside," Ethan said. "Now." Alexander followed him around the back of the cart to the small storage shed. The door clicked shut behind them. The space smelled of citrus and cardboard, dim light filtering through a high window. Ethan rounded on him the second the latch caught. "You don't own me, Alex. This is my life, my cart, my customers, my fucking business. You can't just walk up and mark territory like I'm some prize you won." Alexander's hands flexed at his sides. He was flirting. "Yeah, it happens. I handle it every day without you growling at people like a guard dog." "I wasn't. You were." Ethan's voice cracked on the last word. "And it's not cute, it's not protective, it's possessive, like I'm yours to defend from anyone who looks twice." Alexander stepped forward. "Because I hate seeing it. I hate the thought of anyone else thinking they have a chance, because they don't." I'm what?" Ethan cut in. "Be yours because we fucked a couple times in Malibu, because you say mine when your hands are on me. That doesn't give you the right to scare off my regulars." Alexander's face tightened. "I'm not trying to scare anyone. I'm trying to control it, to control me." Ethan's laugh was bitter. "I told you, I'm not disappearing into your world, and I'm not letting you bulldoze into mine." Alexander stared at him, chest rising and falling too fast. For a moment it looked like he might argue. Then something shifted in his eyes, realization, raw and painful. He turned without another word, walked out of the shed, got into the Escalade, drove away. Ethan stood alone in the dim storage space, heart hammering, hands shaking. He waited until the engine faded down the street before he let himself slide down the wall to sit on the concrete floor. He didn't cry. He just sat there until the sun dropped low enough that the light through the window turned orange, then red, then gone. Across town, Alexander's penthouse was too quiet. He stood at the floor-to-ceiling window, city lights smearing below like spilled paint. The black coffee in his hand had gone cold. He hadn't touched it. He replayed the fight in his head, every word, every flash of hurt in Ethan's eyes. He'd never felt this before, the gut punch certainty that he'd fucked up something irreplaceable. He pulled out his phone, typed, "I'm sorry." It deleted. "I shouldn't have deleted." Finally, "I'm sorry, I'm terrified of losing you." He hit send, then he waited. Midnight came and went. At 12:17 a.m., the intercom buzzed. Alexander crossed the room in 3 strides, hit the button without checking the camera. "Yes," Ethan's voice, rough, tired. "Let me up." Alexander opened the door before the elevator even dinged. Ethan stood in the hallway in the same clothes from the cart, apron gone, hair messy, eyes shadowed. He looked like he hadn't slept in days, even though it had only been hours. They didn't speak. Ethan stepped inside. The door closed behind him with a soft click. They collided, fierce, messy kisses, teeth clashing, hands grabbing. Ethan shoved Alexander's Henley up and off in one rough motion. Alexander yanked Ethan's t-shirt over his head, tossed it somewhere. Belts, jeans, boxers' clothes shed like they were burning. Alexander backed Ethan toward the bedroom, mouths never parting. They hit the mattress hard, Ethan beneath him, legs wrapping around Alexander's waist, pulling him down. This time it wasn't frantic. Alexander slowed. He kissed Ethan's throat, slow, deliberate, down his chest, over his heart, lower, reverent. Hands that had gripped so hard earlier now traced gentle paths, along ribs, over hips, thumbs brushing the bruises he'd left in Malibu like apologies. Ethan arched, breath hitching. Alexander lifted his head, eyes locked. "I need you," he whispered, voice cracking on the words. "Not just this, all of it. I'm sorry I tried to own it. I'm sorry I scared you. I've never had anything I couldn't lose before." Ethan reached up, cupped Alexander's face. "Then stop trying to control it. Just be here." Alexander nodded once, sharp, certain. He moved again, slow, deep, tender, where he'd been possessive before. Hands laced with Ethan's, bodies rocking together in a rhythm that felt like breathing. Whispers against skin, names, promises. "I'm here, stay, I need you." When release came, it was quiet, shuddering, overwhelming, shared. They collapsed, tangled, sweat slick, hearts pounding in sync. Ethan curled into Alexander's side, head on his chest. Alexander's arm wrapped around him tight, but not trapping. "I'm not going anywhere," Ethan murmured. Alexander pressed a kiss to his temple. "Neither am I." Outside, the city hummed on. Inside, for the first time, the silence felt safe. And the flames of jealousy, once burning hot, settled into something steadier, something that might last. Chapter 7, Poison. The first sign something was wrong came at 11:42 a.m. on a Tuesday that had started like any other. Ethan was mid, rush line out to the sidewalk, hands flying, half scoop, mash, lime, chili, salt, herbs, toast, hand over. He felt fine. A little tired from the late night at Alexander's penthouse maybe, but nothing unusual. He laughed at a customer's joke, wiped sweat from his brow with the back of his wrist, and reached for the next avocado from the crate he'd opened that morning. The avocado looked perfect, dark green, black skin, heavy in his palm, no bruises. He sliced it open. He didn't notice the faint, almost imperceptible chemical scent until the flesh was already in the bowl. By then it was too late. He mashed it anyway habit, autopilot, served the order. Wiped his hands, felt a sudden, sharp twist in his stomach. Then the room tilted. Ethan gripped the counter edge, knuckles white, his vision tunneled, colors bleeding at the edges. A customer's voice sounded far away, like underwater. "Hey Ethan, you okay?" He tried to answer, couldn't. His legs buckled. The last thing he saw was the tray of finished toast sliding off the counter, crashing to the pavement in a mess of green and bread and shattered ceramic. Then black. Alexander's phone rang while he was in a boardroom on the 42nd floor of a downtown high-rise. He almost ignored it. Another analyst call, probably, but the name on the screen stopped his heart. Ethan's smashed delivery guy Carlos, he stepped out of the room without excusing himself. Carlos, Mr. Voss, Ethan collapsed. Ambulance just left. They're taking him to Cedars Sinai. He wasn't breathing right. I don't know what happened. Alexander was already running. He didn't wait for the elevator. Stairs, 2 at a time, down 40, 2 floors, heart slamming louder than his footsteps. Marco had the Escalade idling at the curb. Alexander threw himself in without a word. Cedars now florid. The drive was a blur of red lights ignored, horns blaring, Marco swearing under his breath. Alexander stared straight ahead, hands clenched so hard his nails drew blood from his palms. He burst into the ER like a storm suit jacket gone, tie askew, demanding Ethan's room number with a voice that made the triage nurse flinch and comply. Ethan was in a private bay, curtain half drawn, Roman 4 in his arm, oxygen mask over his face, monitors beeping steady but too fast. His skin looked gray under the fluorescent lights. Alexander stopped in the doorway, breath ragged. Ethan's eyes fluttered open, found him, weak smile beneath the mask. Alexander crossed the room in 2 strides, pulled the chair close, took Ethan's hand, careful of the Roman 4 line. "This is my fault," he said, voice cracking. "I brought this into your world, the attention, the enemies, Ethan squeezed his hand, weak but deliberate. He tugged the mask down just enough to speak. "Don't you dare take that on." His voice was hoarse, fierce despite the exhaustion. "This isn't your fault. It's whoever did this. Fight for us instead, not against yourself." Alexander's throat closed. He pressed his forehead to Ethan's knuckles, eyes burning. "I will," he whispered. "I swear." The doctors came in then, toxicology screen pending, but early signs pointed to organophosphate contamination. Something sprayed or dusted on the produce, not lethal in small doses, but enough to cause severe cholinergic crisis, collapse, respiratory distress, the works. Alexander stayed until Ethan drifted back under sedation, then stepped into the hallway and made the calls. First, his security team traced the supply chain, every crate Ethan had received in the last 48 hours. Second, his investigator. Cross-reference recent corporate threats, anyone who'd benefit from Alexander being off balance. Third, private jet to New York, wheels up in 2 hours. He didn't sleep on the flight. Marcus Langford's office was on the 58th floor of a glass tower in Midtown. Views of Central Park, minimalist furniture, everything sharp edges and cold light. Alexander didn't knock. He walked in past the startled assistant, slammed the door behind him. Marcus looked up from his desk, calm, almost amused. "Alexander, to what do I owe? You poisoned him." Marcus's smile didn't falter. "Excuse me, Ethan, the avocados, you paid someone. Don't insult me by denying it." Marcus leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled. "You think I'd stoop to food tampering? That's beneath me." Alexander stepped closer. "You cast a curse because I left you. You've spent 12 years watching me suffer. Now that I've found something, someone that actually matters, you couldn't stand it." Marcus's expression flickered just a crack. "You replaced me with street food, a cart boy, pathetic." Alexander's hands curled into fists. "He's more real than anything you ever gave me." Marcus laughed short, bitter, and look where that got him, hospital bed, monitors. "Because you dragged him into your spotlight." Alexander leaned over the desk, voice low and lethal. "If I find proof, if one single wire transfer, one phone record, one name ties back to you, I will ruin you, not just your career, your life. I have the resources, you know I do." Marcus met his gaze, unblinking. "Then do it," he said softly. "Prove it, or admit you're chasing shadows because you're terrified he'll wake up and realize you're not worth the risk." Alexander straightened, turned, walked to the door. He paused with his hand on the knob. "This ends," he said without looking back. "The curse, the games, all of it." Marcus's voice followed him out. "Good luck with that." Alexander took the elevator down alone. In the car waiting outside, he stared at the city blurring past. tall buildings in different crowds. He pulled out his phone, texted Ethan's last known nurse for an update. Stable, sleeping, vitals improving, relief hit like a punch. Then he opened his contacts, called his most discreet fixer, the one who handled things that never made paper. Find out who touched the avocados, he said when the line connected. Every link in the chain. I want names, dates, payments, and when you have them, bring me proof. A pause, and then Alexander closed his eyes. Then we end this curse for good. He hung up. Back in LA, Ethan would wake up soon, and when he did, Alexander would be there, not to protect him from the world, but to fight beside him until the poison, the curse, the past, were nothing but ash, and they could finally taste something real again, together. Chapter 8, Breaking Alexander Voss landed back in Los Angeles at 3:17 a.m., the city still dark and glittering below the descent. He hadn't slept on the red eye from New York. His eyes burned, his suit was rumpled from 24 hours of travel and rage, but the only thing that mattered was the text from the hospital nurse at 2:04 a.m. Discharged 90 minutes ago, stable, went home, said to tell you he's okay. Alexander didn't go to the penthouse first. He went straight to the arts district. Ethan's apartment was above a quiet bakery, small, walk up, the kind of place that smelled faintly of yeast and cinnamon even at night. The door was unlocked when he tried the knob. Ethan never remembered to lock it when he was home. Alexander stepped inside. Ethan was on the couch in sweatpants and an old hoodie, knees drawn up, staring at the muted TV screen playing some late-night cooking show he wasn't really watching. A half-empty glass of water sat on the coffee table beside a bottle of electrolyte powder. He looked pale, thinner somehow, but alive, fiercely alive. Ethan didn't startle when he saw Alexander. He just looked up, eyes tired but clear. You're back. Alexander closed the door softly behind him. I'm here. Ethan studied him for a long moment. Then he stood slow, careful, still unsteady, and crossed the small living room until they were only a foot apart. You look like hell, Ethan said. So do you. A ghost of a smile. Then it faded. Ethan's voice came out quiet but steady. We need to talk. Alexander nodded once. I know. They sat on the couch, close enough that their knees touched, far enough that the space between them felt deliberate. Ethan spoke first. You can't keep trying to control everything, he said. The cart, the customers, the danger, me. I get that you're scared. I get that this us means something huge to you. But I love you, Alex, and I won't disappear into your empire. I won't become the guy who only exists when you're not in a boardroom. I won't let you build walls around me to keep me safe, because eventually those walls will feel like a cage. Alexander's throat worked. He stared at his hands still clenched from the flight, from the confrontation with Marcus, from every second he'd spent terrified Ethan might not wake up. I know, he whispered. I know I've been trying to hold on too tight. Ethan waited. Alexander lifted his head. His eyes were red, rimmed, voice raw. The curse wasn't about food, not really. It was about never feeling anything, not joy, not pain, not love. Everything went gray the day Marcus spoke those words, and I let it. I built an empire on top of the emptiness because it was easier than admitting I was hollow. Then you handed me that first toast, looked at me like I was just some hungry guy in a suit, and suddenly color flooded back. Heat, life, you made me feel everything. Fear, want, need, love. If you walk away now, I lose more than taste. I lose the only thing that ever made the world worth waking up for. Ethan's breath hitched. Tears welled in Alexander's eyes, silent, unashamed. One slipped free, tracked down his cheek. Ethan reached out, thumbed it away. His own eyes were wet. I'm not walking away, Ethan said softly, but we do this together. Equal, no cages, no bodyguards, no mine unless it's both of us saying it. Alexander nodded, sharp, desperate, together. Ethan leaned in first. The kiss was slow, tentative at the edges, then deepening like a sigh finally released. Hands cupped faces, fingers threading through hair. They moved together toward the bedroom without breaking apart, shedding clothes in quiet rustles, hoodie, shirt, sweatpants, briefs, no rush. No desperation this time, just need, deep, aching, honest. They fell onto the bed in a tangle of limbs. Alexander covered Ethan's body with his own, skin to skin, heartbeats sinking. He kissed every inch he could reach, temples, eyelids, the faint scar on Ethan's shoulder from a childhood bike crash, the bruises on his hips that had faded but still marked where Alexander had once held too tight. Ethan arched under him, hands roaming Alexander's back, tracing the tense lines of muscle, grounding him. They made love slowly, deeply, every movement deliberate, every breath shared. Alexander moved inside him with reverence, eyes locked, whispering promises against Ethan's lips. I'm yours. I'm here. I love you. Ethan answered in gasps, in touches, in the way he clung, fingers digging into shoulders, legs wrapped tight, voice breaking on Alexander's name. When release came, it rolled through them like a slow wave, shuddering, overwhelming, quiet. They collapsed together, tangled, sweat slick, hearts pounding in tandem. In the dark, Ethan pressed his forehead to Alexander's. Stay, he whispered. Alexander kissed him softly, always. They lay there for a long time, breathing, holding, silent. Then Alexander shifted, reached for the nightstand, and picked up the small black box he'd carried from New York. Inside was a single item, a thin silver chain with a tiny pendant shaped like an avocado seed. Simple, unassuming, something he'd had made the week before the poisoning. He fastened it around Ethan's neck with trembling fingers. Ethan touched it, confused. What's this? A reminder, Alexander said, that the curse ends tonight, not because of spells or confrontations, because of us, because I choose you over everything. Ethan's eyes widened. Alexander sat up slowly, pulled Ethan with him until they were both sitting against the headboard. He reached for the untouched mug of coffee Ethan had made earlier, now cold, and took a sip, his eyes closed, real, bitter, perfect. The flavor bloomed on his tongue, rich, dark, grounding. No ash, no gray. He opened his eyes again, tears slipped free. Ethan watched, breath caught. Alexander set the mug down, turned to him. I can taste it, he whispered. Coffee, real coffee. Ethan's hand found his, squeezed. Alexander looked at him, really looked and smiled, small and broken and radiant. But I don't care about the rest, he said. You're my flavor, you always will be. Ethan pulled him close, kissed him slow, deep, tasting coffee and salt and love on his lips. The curse shattered not with thunder or ritual, but with quiet, unshakable devotion. In the small apartment above the bakery, two men held each other in the dark, and for the first time in 12 years, the world tasted like hope.
That's all for today on Cherry Blossom BL Story. Thank you for watching. What do you think about this chapter? Did you like it, or do you think something unexpected is coming? Comment your thoughts below, and subscribe for more stories.